Hey everybody, this is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank, and I was asked the other day if I could do an update on my German blue ram, who I just scared behind the bushes back there. But I need to do some maintenance on this tank. I did do a top-off with the water a few days ago, but I don't like to do too many top-offs without doing a water change, and in this case I definitely need to get in there and wipe the front glass down. I've got a bunch of algae growing on it. It's kind of hard to tell because it's right where that bush is, but once you get up close you can see that's really a lot of obscured view from the algae growing on the glass. So I'm going to get in there and do that. I'm going to do probably a 5-gallon water change. That's what I usually do in this tank. I just keep a 5-gallon bucket in here, and it's nice and simple. It's 25%, and we will change the filter and all that good stuff while we're in there. So there's your before. We'll spend a little more time looking at the tank after. And there's your after. So I got some interesting stuff to talk about today. I'm not really sure what to make of what I found when I was in there cleaning the tank out. First of all of the stuff you saw on the front glass there was the green spot algae that was starting to develop. And if it wasn't the green spot algae, it was something really similar because it was really difficult to get off the glass. I went through 2 of the little melamine sponges. I take the full-size sponges that are the size of what you'd purchase as a magic eraser, and then I cut that down into much smaller pieces, and I can usually clean the entire face of a 125 with one of those little pads without them getting filled up with grunge. And this was so difficult, I went through 2 pads scraping that grunge off the front because the pads were starting to just sort of slide over the algae rather than, scraping it off of there. And so it was a little difficult to get it off of there. Again, when I say a little difficult, I mean, with the magic eraser type things, those melamine sponges makes it really easy by comparison. If I was using some of the batting material that I used to use, that would have been, I'd still be in there doing it. This is what I'm talking about with the melamine sponges. I cut them into little slices like that. So it actually took 2 of these to get that glass all cleaned off of there. I was really surprised at how difficult that was. So the nitrates are getting up there a little bit. They're about 40 parts per million. They're probably not quite there. That still looks a little orange to my eye. But, whatever. We'll call it 40 parts per million. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a water change. That's about par for the course in this tank. I did find 1 dead guppy in the back. I pulled some of the Java Windelov out of there, and as I was pulling everything up, and every grunge and all this stuff came swirling up from the bottom, apparently in the back and the bottom, kind of caught down in the roots, was a dead guppy. So I did pull that out of there. But out of the stuff I've noticed when I was in the tank, getting back to what I found that was unusual, was the grunge on the glass, which again I think was the green spot algae or something very similar because it was really, really difficult to scrub off of there. And then I did a gravel vac in the areas I can get to, which is generally this front area. I get into that back corner where the heater is a little bit. I work my way across this front, and I'm not super vigorous about it because of the roots of the plants and everything in there. And then I can't even get back in here anymore because of all this, that temple plant just fell over and I've left it there and never really gotten around to doing anything with it. But when I was, scrunching the gravel vac down into the gravel, the filth that came up, and it's normally all nasty and gross looking and everything, but this was like black. I've never seen it so dark. It was literally just like black, like I was soaking oil up off the bottom, like used motor oil black. And I found that to be really strange. And I also see all of this weird growth all over my Java Windelov in there. It's kind of like algae, but it's sort of black and gross, and I'm not really sure what all of that stuff is. I did have somebody tell me once that when I see that black stuff starting to grow all over the Java Windelov, it means that the Java Windelov is about to start multiplying or dividing, I guess you could say. And so, indeed, I ran my fingers through it like I normally do. And I mean, literally, you run your fingers through it like you're running your fingers through the hair. And it will just pull all of the loose stuff out of there. And I've got a bucket full of it now. So there were tons and tons of little young Java Windeloves in there. You can see how much smaller the plant is. So, again, whether that's true or not, in fact, I think this one is actually... No, this is what I'm seeing is just this little one right here. So I got millions of tiny, tiny ones like that, but I've got quite a few very large clumps, and in fact, the whole entire clump that was in the back there came out all in one piece, so I've got that available as well. So anyway, I'm not really sure what's going on in here. I don't know what all that black stuff was. I don't know why I'm suddenly getting all of that growth on the glass. I've never had to deal with that kind of stuff on the glass before. The filter was about normal. The filter pad was really, really dirty and had like this almost blackish sort of appearance. So I'm not sure what's going on with there. The only two things I've done differently to this tank recently was I put some nearite snails in there. In fact, if you look really closely down there, you can see those little tiny white specks. Those are nearite snail eggs, I believe. So I got a couple of nearite snails in there, and I have been using Flourish. Not on any kind of regular basis. The very reason I don't use these kind of products is because I never remember to, and I never do it on any kind of schedule, and so I always find it's just not even worth doing it. If plants don't live in my aquariums, and I don't put those kind of plants in my aquarium. This tank, however, because it's got that plant in it, I thought needed a little extra food in the tank, so I put the Flourish in there, which is only trace minerals. It's not a macronutrient solution. It's only a trace mineral solution, and yet now I'm starting to get this weird black growth, and I'm getting the algae growing on the glass that I never got before. I'm guessing maybe that's it, because that's the only thing I can think of that's any different. And again, those nitrates there, that's not an exceptional amount of nitrates after a few weeks of not doing a water change. I feed this tank a few times a day. It's really warm. And so the fish probably have cranked up metabolisms, and, a few light feedings during the day and throughout the day is probably better than one big fat feeding late at night, which is what my tanks downstairs get. 40 parts per million nitrates after a few weeks of that, or a couple of weeks at least of that, is not that big a deal. So all in all, I'm quite happy with it. The reason I keep talking about the nitrates, and I am still going to sit down and do a video where I talk more in depth about nitrates, I know I keep saying that, I've been saying it forever, is my German blue ram back there. For years, I was reluctant to buy one of them because I was told they were really super sensitive to nitrates, and if your nitrates get up over, 10 or even 20 parts per million, the fish will start suffering, and by the time you get up to 40 parts per million, a German blue ram's just going to die. You just can't keep fish like that in those kind of nitrates. And so I've never bothered to really try because my nitrates are always like that. And come to find out, nitrates really aren't that harmful to fish after all. That's just a lot of hype that gets blown around in the aquarium hobby. I think nitrates are the biggest boogeyman there is in the aquarium hobby. Everybody's afraid of them, and they don't really do a whole lot to our fish. But I decided that I was going to keep this fish. I wasn't going to do anything special in order to try to keep it. I'm not deliberately letting the nitrates get out of control or anything. I'm just keeping this tank the way I keep all of my tanks, and the nitrates are just going to do what the nitrates do, which is get up to 40 parts per million. This tank's actually a little lower than most of my tanks. Most of my tanks get up to 40 to 60 parts per million, maybe even 80 parts per million between water changes on a regular basis, whereas this tank, I got to kind of let it go for a little while before it gets up there. I've often done water changes on this one and found out that it's still only, 20 or 30 parts per million after a week or two. So this tank does have lower than normal nitrates by my standards, but it's still way higher nitrates than people told me for years that these German blue rams would be able to survive in. And mine's going on probably 8 months now, still looking good. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously their lifespan is years and years, and just keeping it alive for 8 months isn't necessarily anything definitive, but we'll see how it works out in the long run. So make sure you're subscribed, and you won't miss any updates on this tank or anything else I've got coming up. Don't forget, of course, this one is my 20-gallon open-topped office tank. So thanks again for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you real soon in the next one.